Konnichiwa minasan, Nihongo o benkyou shimashou. Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of Rising Sun Japanese, which I call because Japan is the land of the rising sun, which kind of makes sense because if you actually look at the kanji, we've got sun and origin, so that's pretty cool. And also because it's just a cool sounding name. My name is Sam Harkin. I'm 21 years old from Melbourne in Victoria in Australia, and I'm currently studying at TAFE, which is kind of like community college, to be kind of like a lab technician kind of person. And I say that because I want to use this video as an introduction to the course, which makes sense because it'd probably be weird if I started talking about this stuff like 10 videos in. So I'm just going to do it on the first one. As for my background in Japanese, I've studied Japanese for 5.5 years at my old high school, and I've been to Japan, so yeah, I've got a bit of that kind of background. And as for an introduction to this course, I just want to say quite simply that this is going to be a user-driven Japanese course. Obviously, because I have that background, it's going to be primarily focused on the actual Japanese language, but I'll be happy to go into stuff like food and etiquette and that kind of stuff. And the reason that I said I'll be happy to as opposed to I'm going to is because of the user-driven experience, which is essentially I'm going to leave kind of lesson ideas up to you guys. Not in the sense that I'm lazy, in the sense that it's a big freaking language, like there's lots of, and culture and all that kind of stuff. So I want to know what you guys want to see. So yeah, go into the comments please. And as for the rest of the video, I want to use this to introduce what is going to be my first topic, which is hiragana. And the intro is about, well, what is hiragana? Well, it's actually a writing system. What are the writing systems of Japanese? Well, I'm about to tell you. So just shut up and pay attention for a bit, please. When it comes to Japanese, there are a few ways that we can actually write down symbols that are supposed to give us an idea of how everything's supposed to be pronounced and everything means. The first one of which is probably the one that you're more aware of if you've seen kind of like YouTube videos on like how to speak Japanese. And this is quite simply known as Romaji, which is Japanese for Roman characters, which, if you don't know, is just the alphabet. Essentially, it will attempt to translate the sounds in such a way that it can be read by an English person. For example, the word for hello is konnichiwa, which is written as such in Romaji. Now what I want to say is I want to try and avoid using Romaji too much. Now I'm not going to completely abolish it from my video series because I don't want someone who's like just new coming into a video and being just like, what do all these things mean? But I don't want to use it too much, and I don't want to like completely rely on it, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, nobody uses Romaji to write anything in Japanese in Japan. So if you go over to Japan and all you know is Romaji, you won't be able to read anything. Which leads to the second thing, which is you get to read Japanese stuff. You get to be like, oh, what does this thing mean? What does this say? And all that kind of stuff. And the last one is that we have to consider that this is an Asian language. It's one that's completely distinct from English and stuff, and as such it's kind of a bit misleading to be relying on Romaji because it doesn't perfectly kind of symbolize how it's supposed to be said. And so while I am using it from time to time, this is why I'm teaching hiragana, because then we don't have to rely on this. Speaking of which, hiragana is probably the simplest of the three kind of not Romaji, like actual Japanese texts. Pretty much the bread and butter of Japanese. If you can read hiragana, then you'll be able to like write and communicate with people regardless of if you know the other two. And in that way, I kind of liken it to the alphabet in the sense that in English, if you can like read the alphabet and understand how things sound, then you can read most words, even if you don't understand what they mean. And they have fairly simple rules of how to do kind of the equivalent of like phonetic translations and that kind of stuff. But that's something that we'll get into in future lessons, so let's just move on. The second one that I want to introduce is katakana, and if hiragana is considered to be like the English alphabet, katakana is kind of like all the accents. And there are actually two reasons. The first one is that katakana and hiragana behave in pretty much the same way. So look at both of these pairs. These ones are hiragana, these ones are katakana, and both are read the exact same way. And they also follow the same rules, even though, truth be told, there are rules that are used a lot more in katakana that aren't really used at all in hiragana. And the second way that katakana is similar to accents is that both are used for loan words. So what are loan words? Well, when we talk about words that have originated in a different language, they've just kind of been imported into the language, that's a loan word. Cafe, senorita, kimono, manga, anime, all those are considered loan words. In the case of Japanese, these will be written in the specific text of katakana and are pretty much only used for this purpose. The thing that is actually worth noting is quite a lot of these are actually English words. So words like basketball, rollerblading, skirt, those words are basically just imported through katakana. So pretty much all of them will be English. However, there are some that aren't. For example, pants, sadly are not pantsu, because pantsu is actually panties. But instead we use the French word zubon, so there you go. And the third one, and the one that is just so terrifying, is kanji. And there are a few reasons that kanji are difficult. The first one is quite simply there are tons of them. For example, I believe that it's considered like you need 1,000 or something kanji. You need to know them and know how they are translated and everything to be able to read the average Japanese newspaper. So that's kind of terrifying. For the other two, I'd like to liken kanji to being kind of like your numbers and your symbols and that kind of stuff, just because it makes it easier to explain. Just go along with it. Now, firstly, I want you to consider three: the numeral and the word. In the case of the word, it's similar kind of to hiragana in the sense that you've got these letters which represent different sounds, but in themselves, in the individual letters, they don't actually have any meaning. Whereas kanji is kind of like the numeral 3. You can't tell just from this like how it's going to be pronounced, but in and of itself, it contains a meaning, like there's 1, 2, 3 of something. And that's essentially the way that kanji works. It doesn't work off pronunciation specifically, it works off specific meaning. However, this can be difficult when you're combining. For example, like the word tenki, meaning weather, is from the kanji meaning air and feeling. Similarly, newspaper, I believe, is from the kanji for new and to hear. So it's not really super convenient. Like, it is very nice and very kind of poetic and that kind of stuff, but it can be hard to follow at times. The other issue, which is once again similar to the numeral 3, is you can have 3, but then you can also have a third, and then you can have third, and you can have 33. So in that sense, this once again doesn't really symbolize ultimately how it will be pronounced, and that is once again true of kanji. For example, when you're using the kanji for 3, just by itself it's san. However, if you want to say like 3 of something, you'd say mitsu. And yeah, it can become a bit hard to follow, and it will be constantly changing depending on the situation that you use it. Having said that, I'm going to try and include kanji a little bit. If nothing else, I'll probably show you like how to write numbers. But for the most part, I'm probably gonna avoid that kind of minefield of trying to teach you all the kanji, because it can be very overwhelming very quickly. So yeah. Anyway, that is the entirety of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today. Please tune in next time, where we'll be starting on our 2-part lesson on hiragana, so you can learn how to write stuff in actual Japanese, and it's very exciting. Oh well. And as previously mentioned, please put any questions that you might have into the not the description box, in the comment section. Please give me some questions that you would like answered, whether it be Japanese language, Japanese food, Japanese etiquette, anime. I watch a lot of anime, so... But until then, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me and all the people who are involved in this little projecty thing, and I will see you guys soon.